Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group 3. We will presentation about Narratology. But before start the presentations today, I will introduce our members. First is Novitasari, second is Rizki Wahyu Arifah, third is Sulthan Walad, fourth is Sebastian Viery, and the last is Zainal Musthofa. And for our presentation today, at the first part will be presented by Sulthan Walad.
In this presentation, our group will explain about example of genre studies in narratology, including Vladimir Prof and the genre of fairy tales, Seno Gumira Ajidharma in the Indonesian roman comic genre, Arthur Asperger and American action story genres, and Jenny Way and the American romance novel genre.
Vladimir Prof lives in Russia. He is a literary expert who specifically studies the fairy tale genre in his country. And he is a member of Russian formalism. He researches fairy tales by comparing the plot of one fairy tale to another. He says that the plot of each Russian fairy tale has a fixed nature, and he calls the plot a theoretical term, namely function. Vladimir Prof invented 31 consecutive functions that belong to the rules of the plot that make up the fairy tale genre in Russia. Here is the rule for the sequence of the 31 Prof functions. One of the family members leaving the house. Prohibitions are given to heroes. Prohibitions are violated, and others. If someone makes a fairy tale and doesn't allow Prof's rule, it can be assumed that the story is not included in the fairy tale genre. When someone makes a fairy tale, they will automatically be bound by the plot rules that have become a storytelling convention. That way, genre actually bends the story creation process by the author and at the same time shapes the way the reader understands a story. This means that genre is conventions.
Arthur Asperger is an American expert in communication and popular culture, born in 1933. In the 1990s, he has researched for popular action story genres that have long appeared in American novels and film. The American action story genres was researched were first, Western is a genre of fiction set primarily in the later half of the 19th and early 20th century in the western United States, which is styled the Old West. Second, science fiction is a genre of speculative fiction that typically deals with imaginative and futuristic concepts such as advanced science and technology, space exploration, time travel, parallel universe, and extraterrestrial life. Third, hard-boiled detective. Hard-boiled fiction is a literary genre that shares some of its character and settings with crime fiction, especially detective fiction and noir fiction. And last, spy fiction, a genre of literature involving espionage as an important context or plot device emerged in the early 20th century. His research showed the difference between genres. These characteristics are generally accepted rules of each genre. The example is Western. The time is 1800s, the place end of civilization. The male protagonist cowboy and the female protagonist is teacher. Secondary figure citizen Indian, the antagonist fugitive, and the plot restores the power of law. The theme is defense of justice. Costume cowboy hat, vehicle horse, and the weapons is gun. And another science fiction. The time is future. The place outer space. Male protagonist is astronaut. The female protagonist astronaut, and the secondary figure technician. The antagonist aliens. The plot get rid of aliens. And the theme human glory. Costume hectic costume. The vehicle spacecraft, and the weapons is laser gun.
Janice Radway and the American romance novel genre. Genre conventions are used to impact an audience is very important. A lot of books labeled romance story usually have a happy ending, so people will expect that's happy ending. But if a romance story have an unhappy ending, romance reader might be very upset when they reach the end of the book, and people might disqualify a book from the genre. However, on the other side, if the genre conventions are too absolute, the reader will also feel bored. That's why variations is also important, as long as it does not change the main features that make up the conventions of genre. In the case of a romance film, the change from happy ending to a sad ending will be felt by the audience as breaking the main characteristic. So, various can be made in other aspects like change the characters and the setting. Let's look at Janice Radway's result on the romance novel, most liked by readers in America in the 1980s. Using Vladimir Propst's concept of functions, she discovered 13 functions in the romance genre. First is, the female characters experience a reign of fate. Second, female characters give a negative reactions to male figures from the aristocracy. Third, the noble male characters is ambiguous towards the female characters. Fourth, the female characters interprets the male character's attitude as evidence of the man's sexual intentions towards her. Fifth, the female characters is angry and cold towards the man. Six, male characters ignore female characters, and so on, as you can see on the screen.
Those are the functions in romance genre. Radway gave an illustration of the function number 1. She explained how it appeared in several of the novels she studied. The point is, the story that is considered ideal in romance genre begin with the female character loss of comfort and pleasure from her circle. That was usually part of her childhood and family. For example, Heather Simon's character is separated from her protector by her evil uncle, who intend to sell her to a brothel. So, the beginning of the romance story almost always reveal feeling of isolation and loss experienced by the female character. From Radway illustration, we can link the situation of the first function to the last function, which is happy ending. The destiny of female character is better because she has found her life partner. The happy ending feels natural because the character has suffered from the start. That's how convention is formed and expected to happen in romance genre.
Seno Kumira Acidharma and the Indonesian romance comic genre. Based on research from Jacob Sumarjo, the trend of romance stories in Indonesia in the early days of the emergence of modern Indonesian literature has a rule that the end of the story tends not to be a happy ending. This rule is very different from what applies to romance novel in America. According to Radway's research, romance stories in America in the 1980s tended to have a happy ending, whereas in Indonesia, the role of romance novels at the beginning of the emergence of Indonesian modern literature with the sad ending principle lasted until the 1970s and influenced the romance comic genre of that era. Seno Kumira Acidharma analyzes the plot of Indonesian romance comics in the 70s era especially Zaldi Armendari's works, which tend to be sad ending. He found two plot rules that underline this sad ending, namely what he called the unleashed love and love triangle pattern, which consists of a peace triangle and a war triangle. Irshad Ridho, the author of this book, developed Sinogumira research to determine more detailed rules that underline the sad ending plot in the comic Zaldi Armendaris. He discovered that the rules of the plot of Zaldi's romance comics relate to the character's struggle to maintain their social status as the middle class. The plot rules that become the arena of struggle for the character in the comic consist of four types, namely matchmaking, broken home, infidelity, and falling into poverty. The four types of plot are social situations that cause the loss or break off the main character in the story, so that almost all of the stories end unhappily.
I think enough for our presentation today. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.